Hello and welcome to the 2ScoopsofWoo podcast, where we are delivering metaphysical flavor on a cone of logic. And today we are going to be talking about what kind of medium are you? And our guest, Kevin Lee, is going to share with us all kinds of amazing aspects to mediumship, starting with some simple things and then some things here that might be a little bit of surprise. You see that we got a full cast of us here to ask questions and interact with Kevin. The reason for that is we are fellow seekers in wonderment, and we are asking those metaphysical questions out loud. Kevin is he is a best-selling author, international, okay, not just here, media personality, I mean, gifted spiritual intuitive. This guy has done more things than we have time to list because we want to hear what he has to say. Kevin, you are here for us and ready to deliver. Thank you for taking the time with our listeners.
Sure, absolutely. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you guys for having a platform to allow people like us to share and really just to kind of bring a little more light to the world. We always need more of that.
Ding, ding, ding. I love me some Kevin, man. We know each other through a mutual friend that introduced us, and Kevin and I knew right away that we wanted to work together. We've got some things in the pipeline that we've already talked about, and that's and of course Colleen and Darlene are both with us today, and Darlene is going to go ahead and get us started with some questions, Kevin. So off we go.
Well, Kevin, I am so excited to have you here tonight. Thank you
Great
for
to
joining.
see you. Thank you.
Yeah. Now, we often hear the term psychic medium, or we hear medium, or we hear psychic. Can you please explain what the differences are?
Sure, absolutely. So we know the word psychic. It's a very common word. It's got some positive inflections to it, some negative inflections in society. But what I'll say is this: everything is psychic, meaning that everything that has a life force is an emanation of the divine source. So we all have psychic potential within us. That same psychic potential is a living essence. It's inside all things. And so the difference between being a psychic and being a medium is just that psychic is a very all-encompassing term, an expression of divinity, if you will, this psychic law, this psychic force. And it's almost like from the movie Star Wars, where they talk about using the force. It's in everything, literally everything. And so when we know that there are some people, like in the movie Star Wars, where some have a greater potential of the force, and it can also be developed to some degree or to great degree within certain individuals. And so just like being psychic, I can also be a medium, but being a medium is really about communicating with the mind of another personality. I call them spirit personalities. And so these are discarnate beings. They don't have bodies like us. They have spirit bodies, right? So this is mind-to-mind communication. That's mediumship. And if I work psychically, it just means that I'm using the force, the psychic potentials and laws and energies in the universe in a way that I can tap into it. It's an infinite expression, which is why we always hear psychics say, I feel as though I just dropped away into the void, because literally they could see or feel almost everything. And that's probably the best definition of psychic and medium. And I will say this, I do see in marketing a lot that term psychic medium. Behind the name Kevin Lee, I don't think you're ever going to see psychic medium, because it's very redundant. If you think about it, that's like me saying, hi, I'm Kevin Lee, I'm a healthcare nurse. Well, of course, I work in healthcare, but I'm very particularly a nurse. So there's no reason to say healthcare. Same with saying you're a psychic medium. There's no need to say you're psychic. We're all psychic. We all have that potential. But not all psychics are mediums. In the same regard, all mediums are psychic by nature. All nurses are in healthcare by nature. And so hopefully that gives people a little understanding. I think it's just a marketing perspective why we see the term psychic medium. And I think it's confusing to people. And it just isn't very educated to say it, quite honestly.
Well, that helps a lot. Yeah, that's a great explanation. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
I love the beauty of the logic that just got laid down with the woo. Thank you for
out myself as a nerd.
Literally, we did get a Star Wars reference. We
Yes.
now know that you're also a nurse, which I
Yes.
have huge amounts of respect for. I have traveling nurses in my family as well. And you touched on some really beautiful things there. One of the reasons that Kevin and I really hit it off, from my perspective, was that right away I told Kevin I'm a reluctant medium at best. When the energy shows up and I feel like I gotta say something, I will. But it's just not really where I play in that intuitive space. So the psychic, sure, I guess I would call that intuitive. And Kevin, with his explanation about the living essence is really energy,
Yeah.
right? That's really what we're talking about. So however we're connecting to it and interpreting it, interacting with it, it just happens in different ways. I really appreciate that you were willing to go ahead and bring that out front. The psychic medium, is it necessary?
No.
I don't know. I see why it's there. I struggle with, am I an intuitive reader? I don't even know if I am a psychic. I still roll the dice on that sometimes.
You are.
Yeah. And see, Kevin just tells you. There you go. Colleen has got a question for you, Kevin. Please
Sure,
take it
Colleen.
away, Colleen.
Hi, Kevin. Thank you.
Hi there.
So there's different kinds of mediumships,
Mhm.
and if you could explain the different types of mediumships and which ones do you practice?
Absolutely. So I want to just kind of take one step back and go back to the word psychic. So just because I think a lot of people who might be watching this or listening to this online at some point, I think this is a great beginning stepping stone for them, which is we have our physical senses, right? Our 5 physical senses. So we also have our 5 psychic senses. Those are comparable. They're like siblings to your physical senses. So just as I have eyesight, I also have psychic vision. Just as I have hearing, I have a psychic hearing potential. And so there are different names for those. And and as we go deeper into this experience of the psychic world, and I work as a medium, there are many different types of mediums, different potentials. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the movie Harry Potter. Again, my references, but it's the best I have, because there's so many types. All the characters have so many amazing types of potentials, powers and potentials of how they connect and express from the universal energy and in their magic. And really in mediumship, you get the same thing. There's so many types of mediumship, but broadly, I'll say this: we have mental mediumship and we have physical mediumship. And what does that mean? Well, mental mediumship just means that my mind connects with the mind of a discarnate person, a person in spirit personality, and I can receive images, I can receive senses, I can receive sounds, things like that, names, songs, and music even. And so this is a spiritual connection to another person in the spirit world. But I can also sit and work very intentionally as a medium in a way that I allow another spirit personality to influence my mind, or to have a much more physical effect on my body. So I mentioned spiritual, mental, and physical. And so I physically take on the traits of another person, because that spirit personality is really blending with me, blending with my nervous system, my mind, my central nervous system. And I literally take on the mannerisms of another person. I begin to speak as another person. My vocal cords will shift and change, and I'll begin to speak as that person. Different energetic structures begin to physically manifest. What do we call that? Well, the spirit world actually takes the life force of the medium. And we know from the movie Ghostbusters of something called ectoplasm. It's a real thing. It's been documented by Nobel scientists for the last 200 years. There's no question about it. It's just society doesn't understand that. But there's a lot of scientific proof that it exists. They've studied it. And I've witnessed it. And this ectoplasm can be used in many different ways. It can produce solid form. It can produce gaseous forms of different things. It can allow the spirit world to physically manipulate the environment of my space where I'm sitting for whatever intentional purpose. It could be for healing. It could be for surgery, like a psychic surgery. And that's just terminology, which implies the spirit world is doing something of a psychic nature, but it's surgery. I think it's more of a scientific catchphrase. And but it's still very much physical mediumship. And so the physicality of the spirit world becomes very material. And it's just remarkable when you see these different types of mediumship, I'm going to say on display or demonstrated, because I can't tell you the number of times people's lives have been changed. My life was changed by some very peculiar phenomena most people have never heard of, that was a physical nature, but there was also mental mediumship happening because the medium brought a message through that was highly evidential and synchronistic that nobody understood but me. And yet then this physical phenomena took place where a beautiful, very small painting materialized on a canvas of Mother Mary, of Father Joseph, that went perfectly with the season that we were in, which was Christmas. The message that I received, the paranormal phenomena I had experienced months before, of being guided out of my home to go get into my car and drive somewhere, which that changed my life. Just strange. It was so synchronistic and evidential to me. And that's probably part of the biggest key, is that the phenomena was evidential to me. It didn't have to be evidential to everybody in the room. What mattered is, did spirit's interaction with me mean something to me? Did it inspire me, heal me, empower me, uplift me, give me new awareness? Did it enlighten me? Yes, it did. And so that's why it was so incredibly shocking, hard to believe. I'm a skeptic by nature still, and I do this work. But I'm a healthy skeptic. I'm an optimistic skeptic. Do I watch my friends like a hawk to make sure they're not being fraudulent? Hell yes, because I know that the human condition will color things. And I know that if things aren't going the way they have been, sometimes the ego gets in the way and there's some manipulation. I've seen it, unfortunately. And so I do make sure that my friends are behaving on stage and in public presentations, because I'm big on ethics. Like I mentioned to Jason, I'm big on ethics and philosophy in this work. And it is a religious practice for me, because I am a spiritualist, I am a metaphysician, and there's no scriptural creed and dogma that I follow, but I pull the golden truths from a lot of different world religions. In addition, I'm very comfortable with that. Why? Because all of that beautiful golden truth comes through mediums, which are the prophets of old, the saints of old. And so they brought these beautiful truths through to help guide us. So I'm very comfortable using those as my spirituality.
Now, Kevin, you just said something about a canvas. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Sure, that's true. So in that little experience, I wrote about it in my book. I'll show you this, the book, Your Divine Purpose, A Journey to Fulfillment and Legacy. I wrote this several years ago, and I put in there that experience where it was Mother Mary bringing through a message through a medium, and the medium was actually blindfolded, which is fascinating. You don't get to see that very often. Eyes were taped. He was blindfolded. And the reason he did that was to shut out any potential light coming in or vision coming in, so that his psychic vision would become enhanced. So he shut out the physical world and went into the mental world, the spiritual world. And a message came through, very poignant. And the message was, Kevin, you can stay or you can leave. But if you stay, you'll change the lives of tens of thousands of people in your life. You don't realize your potential. And what nobody knew was that 24 hours prior to that, I had decided I was going to protect whatever my soul was from all this psychic satanic thing work that I was discovering, because I really had a hard time believing it was legit and that it was safe. And I had decided I was going to leave church, leave all of this behind, and never come back to it. And that was a message from Mother Mary to really tell me that she loved me, that she was proud of me, that I was not a sinner, that I was of value, and that I mattered to the world of spirit. A saintly figure I had never prayed to, never. I knew who she was. But the fact that a saintly figure came to me to bring that message to me at a synchronistic moment in my life when I was literally nailing the door shut. Literally, I wanted nothing to do with it. And then she said, the medium said, oh, she has a Christmas gift for you. And I thought, what? How's she going to give me a gift? And he said, she's going to produce a likeness of herself on canvas of her and Father Joseph for you. And I put that image in my book. I wish it was in full color. It costs a little more to publish books with color, but I chose black and white, but you can still see the incredible detail. And that little card was so bizarre to me. And I went home and I cried. I went home silent. I didn't even say anything in the car to myself. No radio. I was so stunned. I couldn't figure out what had just happened. I couldn't figure out if it was a magic trick or what this was. But I knew as I sat on my bed, something happened to me today. My life was transformed, mind, body, and spirit. I'm not afraid of death. All the things that I've been told my whole life about the spirit world, how they feel about me, really was not true. I am a good person. I'm not evil incarnate. I don't bring Satan into the world, all these kinds of silly things. And God does love me. And I am of value. And I thought, whatever the heck, this beautiful thing that this beautiful painting that was produced, whatever that is, I want to figure out what that is. And I want to reproduce this phenomena for other people. And I want to prove to others that you can change your life. All you have to do is just focus on what you really want, really to find a life of purpose, to realize that you matter. And that we all matter to that divine creative source in the world. We all have purpose if we're on this earth. If we don't have a purpose, then we go back to the spirit world and we work on some other things. So that was really the beginning of it. And what is that phenomena called, you ask? I know that was a long journey to get to this point, but it basically means that the image, it's a type of mediumship that's rarely demonstrated. It's called precipitation mediumship. And it's called precipitation because from a scientific perspective, spiritual science, it's almost as though, think of rain precipitating out of the atmosphere, right? The atmosphere is air. So water begins to condense and fall out of that solution we call air as a precipitate down onto the cars, onto plants, onto us as rain. And we can also think of other elements. What about fire and smoke? And when you have fire and smoke, it produces what? Ash. And ash is a precipitate. And in just a little bit, I might be able to show you some examples of spirit phenomena that involves ash. The same can happen with ice. I've seen ice form in ways that was highly evidential, very mediumistic, to bring forward a message of a spirit person's presence for someone. And you might even can think of, we talked about water, we talked about ash. Well, another one would be like a type of breath, where your breath produces a condensate, the precipitate in the air, and that's why you can see your breath on a cold night. Think about that. So I'm going to show you some examples of people using the precipitate of breath or vapor to allow spirit to manipulate that element, that precipitate, in a way that produces an evidential image or a recognizable image, or there's a recognizable message. Truly beautiful.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Could
Healthy skeptic over here, if
Yes.
I may, I need to see those pictures. I don't want to wait. I want you to just bring those on right now. I want to see what you're talking about, please. And while you're teeing those up, because I'll assume that you have those ready if you're going to pull those out of your pocket there. Because you talked about Mother Mary, a real quick story. I'll keep it as brief as I can in this moment, but it really does tie in with your experience in that. And I had a similar situation with Mother Mary, where in a group meditation, I had a singular experience with that particular energy, knew exactly what it was, felt all the things that everybody talks about, the whole bit, all the way back to the soul's inception. Because in my studies, seeing souls kind of appearing, being born, hey, what am I doing here? Poof, you're a soul. Go find out. To see that moment occur for me really solidified, wow, there really is a reason. You know, there is purpose here. There's a beginning. And that was what iced it over for me and said, there's no more questions.
Wow.
When I came out of that experience, and I felt that I got goosebumps all over. When I came out of it, the love that I felt and the way that it embraced me really had the same effect of what you're talking about. Admittedly, I was in a class. I wasn't in the same direction that you were. Yet the impact of the experience has always been with me. It is the moment I can say that the switch there, the eternal switch went back on for me. The internal eternal switch.
That's true. That's really true.
Yeah. It was very square. So you got some pictures for us? Let's
I actually pulled up some of those I just spoke about, not the whole collection. If you want me to share that one, you just need to let me know now. So I'll switch to that real quick.
Whatever you have, I want to see the examples that you have to share. It's not that I'm challenging it as much as I want to see the results and what you have to. Okay.
Absolutely. So, so this is this is a buddy of mine who's now deceased. He's in the spirit world of life. But in 2013, this gentleman began to produce. He was inspired by spirit. He was walking in the Canadian Rockies, is where he lived, and he was inspired by their presence. He could feel the presence around him, and he heard some say, "Take a picture of the night sky." And he accidentally caught his breath, and he thought, "That's strange. It's almost like I see eyes and form beginning to form in my breath. Let me keep doing this." So he would go back to the night sky every night, take more pictures, and it began to evolve and evolve more and more, and things began to get clearer and clearer. What you see on the screen on the left-hand side is the original. So it's a little bit more grainy. It's a little more not so defined. One of his very dear friends, who's a spirit artist and a computer genius, took some software to enhance the image, to bring out what's already inside, not to change it, just to enhance in detail what is there. And so you can literally see a hand forming. You can see the face of this boy. You can see striations of hair. You can see hair hanging down in the forehead. Now, he did not recognize who this was, but it's quite interesting that this is what was produced in the photography. So let me go back to a different one. Well, I'll show you another one. So this is a type of precipitation mediumship where the person uses a candle, and the precipitate that creates the images is ash. So when you take a little white canvas, a little white index card, and you hold it over a flame, you always get this smoky black. It catches all the what's the word? Mud, yeah, that's the word. So it catches that ash, right? And so if you, as you're inspired to move that on top of a candle, you begin being influenced not only by spirit mentally, but also there's a physicality that takes place, and the ash begins to collect in a physical form. So here you have where faces, you can see hair and striations. You can see a very bulbous nose. You can see very tight eyes, a recessed face, almost dwarfish, or possibly even, the more I look at it over the years, it reminds me of a poodle, of some type of a dog with a very long snout the image was created directly in front of the face. Who knows what it is, but it's still a moment of spirit communication, right? Here's another image of vapor or breath mediumship where the face of a person begins to appear in the breath in the night sky, and it's captured on in a digital camera, and then of course it's enhanced. So this is just a beautiful example of that. And a lot of people have taken these types of experiments and done them in their kitchen on stoves, which is fascinating. And they'll take a little metal pot, and they'll spray the whole inside of it with black spray paint, and then they'll put water in there. What are they creating? If just with that, not even heating it up, what are they creating?
Scrying bowl.
A scrying bowl. Perfect. Yeah, a black mirror. Think about in the old times when they would set up these psychomantiums and things, or they would scry mirrors, they would use blackened mirrors. And so this black allows forms to build on top of it beautifully. That's why the night sky was such a beautiful canvas for the breath to physically precipitate, being manipulated by spirit forces to create those faces. So that's just a little quick share of what I had just mentioned. As I continue to talk about things, we can jump back in and I'll show you some of the other more profound, much more profound versions. But there's many types of precipitation mediumship. And one of you had alluded to that. And there's, in my understanding, when I travel internationally and speak to different international audiences, it just amazes me how many people have never heard of this. Once in a while, you'll get someone who's done some spiritualist research and has read a book about it. But there's really 5 types. And so we have breath or vapor mediumship, right? We also have something, if you think about the 1800s, what was expensive back then that we have laying all over the office today? Paper and pen, right? Paper and ink, really, pigment. But back in the 1800s, what did they use? What was like Little House on the Prairie? Or what did kids write on with an element of earth in a school, right? Chalk. And they would use slate boards. And so there is a form of precipitation mediumship that began in the 1800s and I will say that it began with the spiritualist movement. And it was a slate writing, as they called it. So they would take these 2 little slates and they would place chalk between them. Sometimes they would tie them with ropes and belts and all kinds of things, or lock them and hinge them and all that for scientific purposes. They would place them either in their laps, under their feet. They'd place them on a table, put their hands on them, things like that. Sometimes they'd even sit on them. And so what would happen is the spirit forces begin to coalesce around the slates. And what are they using? Ectoplasm. They're using the life force of the medium. So typically it was a medium who had these very strong physical mediumistic potentials. Even paranormal phenomena was very common around them, right? Things would fly off the shelves, things would levitate, things would move, things would disappear all the time, reappear, like crazy stuff. Well, that's very physical. So if you have someone that you sit with or that you know that has these types of phenomena, grab them, because those are great for spiritual activation. They're like batteries, right? And so they basically will enhance this phenomena to come forward. So they would also be great to produce the phenomena because they have an abundance of this energy. So anyway, so slate writing, there's these beautiful images and writings that are incredibly fine. How many of us have written on a chalkboard and it looks like a hot mess? All of us. It is so hard to write with chalk in a very precise way. And I'm going to show you in just a little bit some really incredible precipitated slate messages and images that were produced by spirit control. No human hand, I should have made this clear earlier, no human hand is involved in producing these images. No human hand. What I'm going to
I got to see those. I got to see those. Okay. Just go ahead and tee them up. Okay. I'm gonna say, Spirit, you want to impress me? Do it with my Etch-a-Sketch. If you can do it with my Etch-a-Sketch without touching it, I'm gonna believe it.
So I'm going to show you those. So let me just tell you the 5 types. So we have slate writing, right? The slates with chalk. We also have something called spirit card writing, right? So that's the little index cards that are little blank white index cards your mother's put recipes on. They make perfect canvases, and those are great for spirit to precipitate on. Then there's also the one that I showed you where ash is used as a precipitate. We call that many different names, but like spirit smoke flame messages or smoke billets or different things like that. But it implies smoke and fire is used as the precipitating medium. And also we have breath or vapor mediumship, which I just showed you. They're using the condensate, the precipitate of breath, moisture, to produce spirit images. Now we also have portraiture mediumship, where full portraits were produced with different things. Could be oil, could be acrylic. Well, more recently acrylic, and also in old times there were different. They would use oil, but they would also use. There was some type of a pigment that science still can identify what it is. However, under an electron microscope, and I'll point this out to you. The closest thing they can identify this pigment as is the pigment from a butterfly's wing. That's what comes up in a spectrometer, if that's the correct word. And because they can actually see the structure of the pigment on this electron microscope. So I talked to you about slates. I talked to you about spirit cards. We're going to show you those. I'm going to talk to you about portraiture, right? Full portraits. We also had the flame billets, and we also had vapor and breath. So off we go. I should have my Harry Potter music playing. So if you can see here, this is an image. This is actually a museum quality painting of the famous Bangs sisters. And in this image, this is in my collection. Spirit guided me to discover this. I ended up buying it. And there's very few of these left in the world. And this is of the pigment that mimics butterfly wing pigment. It is incredibly ashy. I've touched it. I don't recommend touching the painting. And there's nothing covering it. I simply have it in the glass frame. So that's an example of what spirit will produce. But look at the detail. All right, this was in the 1800s. This again was in the 1800s, produced by the Bangs sisters. This is one of their spirit controls, silver weed, just incredibly, incredibly beautiful. One of the distinguishing factors, which you probably cannot see, is that they don't have eyelashes. Very interesting. All right, I forgot to talk to you about this. I got excited. So this is called silk precipitation mediumship, and the mediums of old would use little pieces of silk, and this technically is not silk. It's a silk blend with polyester, but it works much better than raw silk, which is very bumpy, and it causes the pigment that's used to actually spread out all over into the silk. So it makes a hot mess. So this beautiful synthetic blend, which feels silky, is used with writing pigment. So if you've ever had a fountain pen, the pigment you would put in the pen is the perfect pigment to use for this phenomena. And so what spirit will do is that will dematerialize different amounts of the 4 colors that we would use, and they will produce black and white or even color images of loved ones in the spirit world, your spirit guides, people who are drawn to you. These images are highly evidential to the recipients. They often recognize loved ones who've died, and just truly incredible. There's some in my collection with women with beautiful blue eyes, red hair, and red lips. It is really shocking what I've witnessed in some of these silk precipitations. This is an example. This is actually an illustration of a slate board of what it would look like. And so actually that is, this was produced by the medium Fred Evans back in the late 1800s. And you can see an image of a gentleman named Robert Harrow. It looks like a doctor. He's dressed like a doctor. And so this would have been evidential to the recipient. And so the person in the spirit world would have been the person drawn on the slate. And then there are 4 messages for this recipient of this slate. And it's very common. But look how fine the writing is. And so this was done again by spirit control. This one is incredibly famous, a very famous book. Fred Evans, again, was the medium. Look at the detail, and it's just shocking because the messages that are coming forward for the recipient there must be 20 different messages on this board for the same person, right? And there's also the face of somebody that they would recognize, actually the profile of someone they would recognize that's now departed, that is still in their auric presence and wanting to bring through messages. So just incredibly fascinating to see these. I'll see if I can make this a little bigger for you guys. This one is actually located in the Lilydale Spiritualist Assembly Museum in upstate New York, just south of Buffalo. I wish I had the color version because it's incredibly, the flowers are blue and white. A gorgeous painting that was done with writing. And I've seen this phenomena time and time again where writing and names and signatures and messages surround beautiful elements of art, which is just a gift from the spirit world. They're bringing you flowers. They're bringing you symbology that means something or is beautiful to your spirit. This is another very famous slate where the recipient's Native American Indian protector guide drew himself on the slate using multiple colors. Just truly beautiful. This piece is from the 1800s as well in a private collection. Yeah, and so that is just some great examples to share with you about precipitation mediumship. I do have a couple more that I noticed did not populate, and these are, in my opinion, just truly the piece de resistance. I mean, you guys saw the portraiture mediumship, but this in particular is beautiful because this is what a lot of mediums today are that have produced it in the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years. This is what they're actually producing. This is the current style. Remember how I mentioned those index cards that your mother put recipes on? They make a great canvas for spirit. So what we would do is we would provide in a beautiful spirit basket or a darkened container where no light can get inside, because light will really destroy and disperse the ectoplasmic life force, that phenomena that's happening, and it will prevent this from producing. So what you see here is my mentor, who actually produced this card, Reverend Mike Perry, and this was done probably in the last 10 years, 12 years. And this is a spirit guide. A spirit guide wanted herself to be seen in this way for the recipient of this card. Just truly beautiful. And the detail is photographic. And that was the level of my mentor. Stunning work. Again, this is my mentor. This was the very first card I received from my mentor. This is my gatekeeper, the young man that helps me in the spirit world of life, who helps me with my mediumship. And so again, you see incredible detail. This is how my guide chose for him to look for me. So it's like a fingerprint or a signature. When I think of this image, it immediately locks me into a specific need that I have of connecting with spirit. So I imagine him this way always. On the front of this card, these are two-sided cards, right? So don't forget about that. These cards have phenomena on both sides. It takes a shocking amount of power and training to get spirit to produce on both sides. This is, on this side, you see spirit writing, which is a type of spirit phenomena, right? Physical phenomena. You can see the precipitated inks are literally beginning from the edge and dispersing down the bottom or the side. You can see, I see my legal initials that most people don't know. I can see a very dear friend who died, who loved me to death, always gives me hearts. Strangers will tell me there's somebody around me giving me hearts. I know who it is, right? There's my little Jacob. Jacob signed his name. Archangel Michael is there with me, and also Dr. Reed, one of my doctor of philosophy. So again, this is the front of the card. We call it spirit card writing. And on the back of the card, this is the bonus. Spirit gets to produce whatever they want. And so they usually produce some stunning image from the spirit world of life. Love it. This is an example from one of my dear friends, a young medium, who actually does not share this gift publicly. And truly beautiful, because I know who received this card. Her life is full of dark clouds, let's just say, full of trauma, and always a spiritual struggle. And what is the message you see there? Behind the clouds, the sun is always shining. And I knew exactly what that meant for her. She burst into tears because she needed to hear that message. And that's exactly the healing work of mediumship. The work of mediumship is to uplift the soul, to bring healing to the mind, the body, the spirit. If I can heal your mind and your spirit, you're emotionally and spiritually, do you think that would have an effect on your physicality, the hormonal system involved with emotions, with being at peace in your spirit? Do you think that would reduce stress and heal your body in different ways? Absolutely. So that's why I do say that it heals you mind, body, and spirit. Truly, truly beautiful, shocking work. This is another example by my mentor. Just the quality is stunning. This person literally was wanting to retire, wanted to live near the water, and wanted to buy a bed and breakfast that was very old. And I remember this to this day. They said, She was terrified to spend her life savings, and they said, dare to dream. And there is her message, her biggest, makes me emotional. There is her message from Spirit. Just a moment. that they believe in her, and I've seen it so many times. Sorry about the emotions, but the work touches me so deeply. And I've seen so many people's lives changed because of this work. Pardon me. That's why I love this. That's why I do what I do, why I share it, why I teach it, why I travel around the world, sharing it in different countries, because it's literally, it can be life-changing for people. So that's my yammering.
That's amazing. And would you clarify that all that artwork that you just showed us, as well as the image of the Mother Mary that you first got, that was all created without human hands? Is that correct?
Yes. There is no, people often, when I speak about this, you're correct. That is correct. 100% correct. No human hand is involved. The only human hand that's involved is me putting my white index card into my spirit basket with my crayons, my markers, my gel pens, my paints, whatever I'm using, my chalks, and I shut the lid and I just sit and meditate, right?
Wow.
It really doesn't take much, quite honestly. It just takes intention, and Spirit does the rest. I literally have to show up and then get out of the way. And that's the key. Show up and get out. Let Spirit do their work and stop meddling, trying to do the work for them, right? You let them do the work. It's just like if I wanted to bring a mediumistic message to you, my job is not to really interpret that message. My job technically, and I say it with respect, I'm the parrot. I hear what you say, Spirit, and I repeat it to my customer that's paying me, or my audience that's coming to listen to me, or the person who is a stranger that I know I need to give this message to, right? And so my job is to repeat it and try to be as true to that message as possible, without putting too much of myself into it, unless they need explanation. So yes, no human is involved.
That is the message for the collective right there. Is get it out of the way, show up and get out of the way.
Yes.
Right? That's that, and satisfying that intellectual lets us get to the unseen. There's so many different aspects that you've shared today of where mediumship really shows up. It's no wonder that so many people are doing it, and oftentimes may not even realize it. I have that same thing with the Akashic records, that folks are accessing that kind of information and have been all along. And once they have a dimension to it, it makes a lot more sense.
And let me,
Kevin, we have heard so much from you today. It is clearly the opportunity to have more to share. Before we wrap up for our first time with you, and this, because we're clearly gonna have to do this again, man. I need to see some more of those pictures. Please share with the folks that where they can get a hold of you. I know that the website I Am Kevin Lee is a great start. Do you have anything real quick that you have coming up? Anything for us to watch out for? I know you got a book coming out again. Yep. Tell us what's on the horizon.
Well, just quickly, so we spoke about precipitation mediumship today, and if folks are interested in this, especially all of you spirit artists out there who work psychically or maybe mediumistically as well, go to precipitationmediumship.com, and you'll get a good basic explanation and some examples of what we just spoke about. There's also a wonderful Facebook group that I've created several years ago, full of a bunch of my students who are developing their own precipitation mediumship. They just need to look up Precipitation Mediumship Development, Kevin Lee, right? Pretty easy. Also, if I will tell you this, at the core of everything I do is to make sure that people know that I see you, I hear you, and you matter. And that came from the message with Mother Mary, that every one of us on earth matters. We have a purpose on earth. So a lot of the work that I do in a broad public way is helping people find and have a better life on purpose. So I have a huge event coming up, biggest in my career, in fact, and it's September 5th through the 7th. If you're available to come be a part of that. It's called Life on Purpose Live. I literally walk you through how to go back into yourself to discover what you really truly love in life? What lights you up? What makes your soul beam? How do we do that strategically with a roadmap and to get you to a life of purpose that serves humanity, serves your communities? And you can find that at lifepurpose.live. That's a great website to find that at. So please come if I can help you in any way, spiritually, with a life of purpose. I'm always there for you.
Kevin, thank you so much for all the information and the resources. Resources are always useful. And I encourage anyone that is interested in the mediumship, especially the precipitation mediumship that we've learned about today, to take an opportunity to learn a little bit more. Kevin, thanks so much. And thanks to the cast, Darlene and Colleen, for being here today. Appreciate you showing up in the community. Kevin, much appreciate all the education and
I
info.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
So much,
It's
you
been
all.
fascinating. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
As fellow seekers in Wonderment, asking questions out loud, thanks for listening, participating, comment, share, subscribe, do all the things, folks, because that's how we get the word out. And learn a little bit about mediumship for yourself and see what kind of medium you are. Thank you, and we'll see you in the next episode.